We have a lot of different challenges: inflation, the border. We have challenges internationally. We have challenges with what I would consider administrative, executive branch overreach that extends into our Department of Justice and a lot of the weaponization of government agencies to target certain points of view. The collusion with the tech community to try and silence those views are all challenges, but the great challenges are establishing fiscal responsibility, and that's why I'm on Appropriations and Budget, and that's why I'm on the Agriculture Subcommittee of Appropriations and Budget. So keeping agriculture front and center, focused for me, for this district, is important. On judiciary, I'm focused on establishing an independent judiciary, protecting that independent third branch of government, making sure that it doesn't become weaponized or become, there's not overreach on the part of an administration. So that independence is important. And on judiciary, we also impact the private sector in several ways. So I'm on the subcommittee on antitrust, subcommittee on intellectual property, and those definitely can impact the economy, larger economy. And then the one that is not on my bio is the new one that I got assigned to, and I've learned that I do have a problem. I don't say no to my friends as easily as I should. I should have said no when they said, will you serve on the new select committee on the threat of the Chinese Communist Party? I said I would. That has proven to be a great challenge but I've come to realize that it is the next big challenge. It's the challenge that China presents to the United States, not just as a rival, but now as an adversary, and they are acting adversarially in our economy. You can talk about TikTok. The TikTok ban came from that committee, and we can talk about whether or not a TikTok ban is a good idea. But now we're talking about China having a monopoly on drone manufacturing. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, if our law enforcement starts buying drones and they're made in China and there's a backdoor and they start using them to fight crime in the United States, what's going to happen to that data? So we're starting to learn different things about the way China's acting. Ultimately, they're trying to line up an effort to retake Taiwan, which it would spark a conflict, a military conflict potentially that would extend beyond just the Taiwan region, could potentially involve the United States. So you want to get ahead of it and actually prevent it. I think that our administration, I'm talking about bipartisanship, so I'm trying not to criticize too much, but our administration has been more of a reactive force when it comes to international conflicts than an actively working to prevent them. So part of that is from mismanagement. You just have to look at Afghanistan to see that this administration, even if they may have the right idea, they go about it in a way that resulted in disaster and the loss of 13 lives. But I think with regard to Israel, we need to be much more supportive of Israel and not view both sides equally. One side is terrorist and the other side is a nation state that is the only democracy in the Middle East and actually trying to survive. And then in Ukraine, we have an administration that is willing to write endless blank checks without any end game articulated. And we have tried to pass amendments to bills saying, tell us what your end game in Ukraine is. Is it the retaking of the Donbass region, which are 4 regions in eastern Ukraine? Is it the retaking of the Crimea, which is the southern part of Ukraine, which they haven't held in a decade, and has a huge Russian population and is a major military base of support for the Russians? So taking that would be would take a lot more effort and money. So this administration has not been as effective at their at international efforts as they should be. But so those are the kind of the main areas that I see challenging us right now. That's why I'm in those major areas in terms of my committee assignments. The legislation that I've introduced, I'm very focused on veterans issues because we have a large veteran population in this district. So passing legislation, I was the first freshman Republican to get a bill signed into law when I first got sworn in. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, I've continued to push for legislation that would give veterans more opportunities. One would allow them to have more time to negotiate with bankruptcy trustees and creditors when they come back from conflict, because all too often when they're deployed, their finances go all to pot, and despite the best efforts of their spouse, they're going to come back and it's going to be a challenge putting it back together, and they need time to do that. So that bill is pending. There's also legislation that I have to enable vets to use the GI Bill for more than just higher education. Higher education is not for everybody. Just coming back from conflict, if you want to be able to go to college, a lot of us have family members whose college education was paid for by the GI Bill. We want to keep that going. But let's say you're overseas and you have a great business idea. You should be able to act on that. So my bill would allow you to use your GI Bill benefits up to a certain amount to invest in a small business, to launch a small business. You have to take a small business course. You have to take some basic accounting beforehand. That was my parents' only requirement for me when I went to college, was you have to take 2 semesters of accounting and no debits from credits before you can graduate. But that type of flexibility will help our veterans when they come back to be able to pursue their dreams, and could potentially incentivize more people to enlist, because we do want to turn around some of the numbers that we've been seeing from our recruitment classes. The Marines seem to be holding steady, but the other branches seem to be falling short. So, hoorah, Marines. But let's see. So those are a couple of areas that I've been focused on. When it comes to farmland, preservation is important, making sure that our way of life here in the valley is protected, Alleghany Highlands, but allowing for an expansion to things like other non-traditional areas of agriculture, like beekeeping or growing grapes and establishing a winery. I can't vineyard, but what is the name of the it's not viticulture, but it's close. But we've got a lot of vineyards growing around here. So that type of agriculture we want to encourage in this part, because we need to diversify in the valley if we're going to continue to be an agriculture community. But supporting manufacturing, we know that the economy around here is diverse and has manufacturing as well as hospitality and tourism as well as agriculture. So we want to be able to make sure that this part of Virginia thrives. The 6th District is nothing if not diverse. So, and we want to make sure that the Alleghany Highlands is able to grow its population to draw people to this region, and it's got so much to offer. We just want to make sure everybody knows about it. So there's a lot of stuff I can talk about. If you give a politician an open mic, we will talk. And I want this to be a back and forth. So just like with my town halls, and I enjoy having town halls here and everywhere in my district. I have them. There are 19 cities and counties in the 6th district. I have one in every city and county because folks in Covington have different priorities than folks in Alleghany County, than folks in Lexington City, than folks in Buena Vista City, or the folks in Rockbridge County. So we've been doing that ever since I started. So I just had one here a little bit ago, and we just throw it open. So let's do that again. Or you might have questions for me, I don't even know.
I don't have any listed right
Okay.
I have a comment, but also a question. I have followed Ben's career for over 20 years, and I can say how proud I am that he is representing us. And when I hear from people in Richmond and now DC, when it comes to trying to solve and make a bipartisan situation, they say, give it to Ben, if I'm not mistaken. And if you could share a story about how you've brought people together to help solve problems.
Well, so one of the issues that's still kind of out there is how marijuana is being treated and how CBD is being treated. It's controversial. People have opinions on all sides, and it's complex. And that's one of the things that you have to understand about every issue, is that most issues are complex. For example, Ukraine, I'm concerned about continuing to fund Ukraine beyond $100 billion price tag without an end game in sight. But at the beginning of the conflict, when Russia was on the outskirts of Kyiv and it looked like the entire government might fall, I did vote for the first $40 billion for aid because we wanted to shore them up and make sure that they didn't collapse as a nation, because an emboldened Russia is a danger, under Putin's leadership, is a danger to us all. So the issue is complex. So with marijuana, for example, farming of hemp is a great opportunity, not just for agriculture communities, but for innovation, for creativity, for manufacturing. And so we, in the Farm Bill, encouraged hemp production. When it comes to marijuana being sold as a drug, the state took action to legalize it, not just for medicinal use, but for recreational use. This was after I had left, and they're still debating it. And at this point, it's not sure they're not sure what the final solution is going to be. But I know that both sides are going to work together to try and figure that out. My involvement came before I got elected to Congress, when in the Courts of Justice Committee we were discussing the use of CBD oil to treat epilepsy. And it was a very narrow focus where we had testimony from parents with their children who were severe epileptics and could barely function, but being treated with CBD oil, they weren't having seizures as much and were able to function and live a better life. And so I was tasked, and Dave Marsden, who was a Democrat delegate from Fairfax, were tasked to work together to come up with a solution. And we were able to do that. You had to establish prescriptive authority to do that, but we did that, and that bill sailed through unanimously. And that's the kind of thing that happens so often in Richmond, where If you're knowledgeable about a subject, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. If you're willing to work with the other side to make a deal that can stand up, go do it. And so it's just a problem that it doesn't happen as often in Richmond, in Washington. Almost all of my bills have Democrat co-sponsors. You know, it doesn't mean the Democrats are all signing on board and my leadership is ready to jump and pass it, but I figure you've got to start from there. So that's what I'm continuing to do today. Greg?
Thank you for doing this. I think these are very important town halls,
Oh,
very
yeah.
nice Crane Clinic. I know you just did a tour of a variety of hospitals and healthcare agencies, and I'm wondering if you have any key takeaways, lessons learned, observations you could share, priorities?
Yeah, so we got to see a bunch of different health care providers throughout the district, free clinics in Roanoke, and the Bradley Free Clinic, which was celebrating its 50th anniversary. They've expanded into providing dental care, providing some mental health treatment, but the idea that they have recently started serving Medicaid patients. Still only about half of their patients are Medicaid eligible. The others are not. They are between jobs or between health insurance providers. So getting to meet those folks some of whom were volunteering their time as providers is an amazing thing, but it shows how the federal and state system of Medicaid is as it's changing, how the private sector and how the nonprofit sector and the hospitals are working to adjust. And then we went to bigger providers. I've been to Carilion and Roanoke, been to Stonewall Jackson in Lexington, been going there since I was getting hurt as a child, but
It's a great hospital.
yes, they're very patient with young injured children who scream their head off. But and we went to Augusta Health, which is another provider up in Augusta County. Went to up to Winchester, which it's a hub and spoke system, much like Carillion's. And Augusta also has facilities in Lexington and other areas where they're learning how to serve rural areas. In these rural communities, rural providers have a special line item in our appropriations system, and they depend quite literally, their existence depends on this rural funding. So making sure that that's a priority is something I've come away with and will continue to advocate for in appropriations legislation. Being on appropriations, it's the one bill that has to pass. So you have a lot more opportunity to influence that bill from inside the committee. And we've been able to get a lot of amendments through that help this area and help improve our healthcare system. So we'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?